We are now live. I'll just start the show. Welcome to my show this morning. I have a very special guest, Everett Overton, also known as Coach EO. And I've known Everett Overton for several years now. We've shared stages before. We've had private conversations. And I can say that we have become friends over the years that trust each other and confide in each other. I have recommended people to go to him for coaching. People have come to me and said, I just had some sessions with Coach EO, and I'm so happy that he has lived up to all my expectations, and just watching him blow up. And it's in Chicago, and as I told you, my audience, some time ago, one of my first meetups is going to be in Chicago, and we'll invite Coach EO to the meetup as well. So, Everett Overton, welcome this morning. I know it's 10 o'clock for me and 9 o'clock for you.
Oh man, we're early birds though. I know that you get up early.
Yeah.
I'm up 5:30 every day, and sometimes I'm up earlier than that. And then I just get to work on some stuff, or I just do nothing and just kind of relax. But anyway, good to see you. It's good to be back on your show and unite with your audience, even.
Yeah.
Get a chance to get to know them a little bit.
That's great. It's interesting watching your show evolve from, I just remember being in your apartment, doing your show in your apartment. We saw the apartment. Now you have a set and you have it set up. I mean, it looks like a show, like a TV show, and it's just watching that evolve. And you went to a lighter color scheme. I noticed you went from like a black thing to kind of like a white scheme, and that just looks great. What inspires the new set design?
Well, I always tell my clients too that you got to get started with what you have. So when you mentioned the when I first started, it was a cell phone. Where I lived at that time, I had very poor signal. So every video got uploaded in the lowest quality. It was never HD. But you got to get started, and I went a good 6 months to a year just doing that, just hitting record. It was never even widescreen. It was I had it up more vertical. People were complaining about that. Hey, turn your phone, man. It was even to a point where I couldn't even upload videos due to where I was living. It just signal towers, whatever, that I would have to make a video and then drive to a local CVS just to upload it. So, most people would have said, forget it. I ain't doing that. It would have been a deterrent of some sort, and they would have given up. But I was, anytime I set my mind to something, I'm going to see it through to the end. And it may not be pretty. It may be cringe at times. It could be cheesy. But, you continue to evolve and get better. So eventually, my brand was a black and gold theme. And to some degree, it still is. But I wanted the original or the previous studio to be very dark and black and gold. And I enjoyed that for a couple of years. And
kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. And the next book will be more in line with where I'm at today. And so I always enjoyed bright offices, just bright. I also, when I was younger, I used to watch the Christopher Reeve Superman movie all the time. And there was the Fortress of Solitude. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it was kind of like his domain, so to speak. It was kind of, his area to rejuvenate or whatever it is he did. It's been a long time since I saw it. But I could never forget how it looked. It was kind of like ice and blue and white and just very pure. And I always wanted to try to emulate that in my own way. So as I was kind of debating on how I wanted to go with the next studio, I said, I'm going to go metallic walls. This is kind of a silver metallic with chrome and white. And so I created it. So that's how it turned out. So I'd like to tell people you don't have to start with much. You just have to start with a plan and commitment. Plan and commitment, and know why you're doing it. and keep going. It'll be sloppy. You'll be embarrassed sometimes. I look back at some of my content. I'm like, oh Jesus, like what the fuck were you doing? Pardon my language. It's early. We're on George's
Yeah, that's
channel. I
all
gotta
right.
stop.
That's all right.
But that'll happen. You look back but that's who you were at the time, and you've grown since then.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard it said that like if you're not embarrassed at some of your first videos, then you've done something wrong, because I think everybody
That's right.
looks back at their original work that they first started with and they go, "Oh my God!" Like it's hard to watch. When I look at some of my
Yeah.
first videos, I'm thinking, "Oh my God, I did that." So
You know what it is? The game was there and the experience was there because I was giving presentations at work and
yeah,
talking in meetings and everything. So I was comfortable. But it's sometimes when you're looking at a little dot or just you in the room, it's just a little awkward and you got to acclimate to it. So yeah, you're gonna have those cringe moments. That's for sure.
yeah, definitely. Gosh. Well, you and I have shared stages. We've shared interview rooms. We've done videos. We've had conversation. We've texted back and forth for several years now. And one of the things that I've been quoting on gab.com on my account is the only thing standing between you and what you really want in life is the bullshit story you keep telling yourself. And then last week, ding, it just went off in my head. That's one of your things. Cut the bullshit. And I said, I got to have Coach EO on. I have to have him on. And that's one of the things we'll talk about is your book and the message called Cut the Bullshit. And I've talked about it before to my audience. One of the things that you're known for saying is that it begins and ends with the man. And I know a lot of people, there's a lot of people, well, not unlike me, you have a lot of female followers as well. So, and there are
You
females.
probably have more. You probably have more.
I have a few. I do. I think I have about.
It's that beard, man. They can't get enough.
Yeah, exactly. I think I have about 13 or 14,000 female followers, and I'm really surprised. But I get emails and messages from them all the time.
Good.
Saying, keep doing what you're doing. And this is what I find fascinating is that every female I know has a father. Many of them have brothers. Many of them have boyfriends, husbands, have fathers that have been through stuff. So for women to be offended at what we're talking about, I'm like, well, don't you have men in your life? And for the men that they love, our content, our information is important because women like a strong man. They like a man with direction and such. And to want the best for yourself as a woman is to want the best for your brother, your father, your sons.
Yeah.
What mother, sister, or daughter or wife doesn't want the best for her man? So I find that they might introduce it to the man in their life, and then they kind of creep in themselves and secretly lurk a little bit. So a lot of my work, I don't work with women directly. I stopped doing that. I let the women work with women, but it begins and ends with you. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, there was a previous point I wanted to make about women. I want to be careful here because I'm not on my channel, but women are nosy. They like to alter things, even if something is doesn't need altering. They like to move it. You got something here, they want to go like this. And so it's just who they are. I don't think they're wrong for doing that necessarily. I mean, it's just women like to kind of cause disruption sometimes, but it's just because they like drama. And a lot of women may not like that, but my experience shows that women enjoy drama. They thrive in it. Drama doesn't always have to be super toxic and super dysfunctional. Drama could be something real small. Every drama is a little different, but women like to This space, which I've given many nicknames, the loony bin. I could be a little critical of this space, but I do think that originally, although I'm not a founder of this space, but I think it had good intentions in the beginning. But I think the longer something stays open, it's almost like a nightclub. You open a bar or a nightclub, or, first couple months, you're getting the rich people coming in that spend money and, they want to check it out. Once it kind of sits there for a while, now you got some of the people that, maybe didn't show up originally that come in and they kind of, destroy it. And I kind of feel like that happens here. But this space is for men. Can women watch? Sure. I would encourage them to watch with the intention to learn, not the intention to assert their opinion or their authority. Is there a time to collaborate or to introduce women to the conversation? I think so. But this is a men's space. Could you imagine if men just started showing up at the View and started talking shit? We don't do that, it's because we don't care to do that. And so I think women need to have a respect for this space. I do. I will say that they need to just sometimes come here to learn more about men so they can be more successful with men. And to a point that you made, you'd be surprised how many women don't want happiness for men. And that stems from the fact that they're unhappy. So an unhappy person will not want happiness for another. And I would think that happy women wouldn't even come here.
Yeah.
They'd be too busy being happy, doing happy things with their happy men. This is kind of a place for men that need answers. This is a place for tormented men that can't govern their emotions and their thoughts. This is a space for men to come and get answers. Whether they do that or not, it's up. I think they do that to some degree, and sometimes it can make matters worse. But I think unhappy women come here to cause disruptions, with the exception of a smaller percentage of women that just stumble upon it, find the content unique and kind of refreshing, and then leave.
Yeah. That's true. I like that. Going back to what you said about drama, a lot of times when men create drama, one of the first things we say is that's feminine behavior. Men acting like women. And when women can speak privately, women will tell me, women can be so catty. They can be so cutthroat with each other. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad you're saying that, because if I said that, I'd be misogynistic or whatever. But the reality is when women talk about other women, they will tell you the truth.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing how they can talk about each other openly, and sometimes even in an insulting fashion. But if we just say one thing, we're wrong. I think women need to work on that. I also think men need to work on being told the truth as well. Men don't like the truth just like women don't like the truth. Human beings don't generally like the truth. It's very discomforting.
Yeah.
Back
Elaborate on
to
that.
Your earlier question about it begins and ends with you. Clearly I'm in this space and I wanted to help men out. So it begins and ends with the man is the mantra. However, on the book, I did say it begins and ends with you because, it might fall into the hands of a woman, and I don't want her to read that and then automatically, eliminate it from a possibility of something she could learn from. And then, because that will happen. The second you see, oh, he didn't invite the women, I don't want to read it, and so the intention there was whoever picks up this book, I do hope that it challenges you in a way that you can start looking in that mirror and saying, "Man, I'm the main ingredient for the success or the lack of success in my life." And so that was the main mission of the book. It's going to be a 3-part series, by the way. So this is the first introduction. Book 2 is almost done, and it's one hell of a read. Even I'm reading it. I'm like, damn, this thing is dope. But the first book is to kind of get you to take a look at yourself. The second book is then going to kind of open you up to a couple other things and to kind of give you some structure. But the first book is really not there to give you a ton of answers. It's going to offer suggestions, but it's to get you to look at yourself in a way where you don't feel judged. In a way where you don't. I even said if this book frustrates you, and you want to throw it across the room, by all means throw it across the room. And come back when you're ready. But it begins and ends with the person, 100%. Everything does.
I love this one here, this one line from your book. It says, if you want to be a spouse, you must first be spouse material.
Yes.
Whew.
Yeah.
Talk about
people
that.
Want to wait. Yes, sir. People want to wait until the person comes or the opportunity comes to get ready. But you have to get ready way in advance. Even with this business, this channel, I saw this office. I saw myself speaking on stage. I saw myself having, I'm not a very large channel, but we've grown a bit over the years. We're up to 32,000 subscribers. That's, to me, I don't take that lightly. I could fill an arena with people with 32,000. I think that's another thing. People get caught up in looking at another person's numbers. I don't mean to get sidetracked. And then they start looking at what they have as, insignificant or not enough. But it's more than enough, where was I? What was that question? Pardon me, I got sidetracked. What was that question, George?
If you want to be a spouse, you have to be spouse material.
So you have to become it even before you start planning. So this is why I always say that once I accomplish a goal, I forget about it because I already lived it in my mind. For example, let me show you something real quick. I wanted to put a sunset in my prior office. I literally wanted to emulate what a sunset would be behind me. And so I thought about it and I said, okay, so now I started the planning. I did the research, read reviews, made phone calls, and finally, I created a sunset behind me. And so, but it all started in my mind and my thoughts. And I also, knew that if I could put this behind me, it'll bring a certain level of peace and tranquility to me, which then if I'm in a peaceful state, then the wisdom that has been given to me from a higher power will flow once I'm in a peaceful state. And so I leave it. And so if you want something, you're going to have to be it in advance. Because if you wait until it happens, you're not ready yet. You're not ready. So I even put there, I think I put in the book, if you're a woman that wants a husband, then you have to prepare for that husband to arrive. Make room in the closet. Okay, this is where my husband's clothes are going to go. I'm going to clear out this space. This is for my husband. I'm going to buy a recliner. Hey, when I meet that man and I attract that man, then this will be his seat. And so it might sound a little weird, but even men, you want a wife, but you're having sex with multiple women. You lack discipline with your finances. Your credit might be a little bit shaky. You maybe even you have toxic behaviors. You can't introduce that to a marriage. You're the leader of a marriage. You have to guide the process, and you have to be the gleaming example of a certain standard within that institution. And so my thing is that if you wait until the opportunity comes, you may not be ready. But if you're always preparing for the opportunity to come, you're more likely to seize that opportunity. So I would encourage people listening, what do you want to be? What do you wish to experience in your life? Also ask this question, which kind of goes into the second book. Why do you want it? Do you want it because you saw someone on Instagram have it? Do you want it because your brother has it or your sister has it or you're supposed to have it because society has kind of conditioned you to want that? Do you really want it? Does it make sense for your life? And can you nurture that one thing? Can you really cultivate it and nurture it? Because a lot of people, men and women both, say they want things. But if you give it to them, just like freedom, people want freedom until you give them freedom. And you give them freedom, now they want a leader again.
Yeah.
I noticed that. You give somebody the opportunity, here's your freedom. What are you going to do with it? I need a leader. No, you got to lead now. It's time for you to lead. And so just ask yourself the tough questions. Why do I want this? Who encouraged this? Am I being a copyist right now where I saw
Yeah.
somebody else have this and they appeared happy, so now I'm going to try to get this? I don't encourage that because that will backfire.
It's almost like I know some guys will say stuff like a lot of the what I call like the success guys on Success Twitter, Success Gab. They will say stuff like, go and rent. I saw this one recently. Go and rent a penthouse apartment for a month on Verbo or something like that. Something with a great view. Something where, like, if you had the kind of money to live that lifestyle, just like get a taste of what that lifestyle is like, so it triggers something in you to get you moving in that direction, rather than it just always being a dream in the future or in the distance. Give yourself an idea of what your new life will be like. Rent the kind of car, like your dream car, whatever. Rent that for a week and just get that in your system. Like, damn, this is good. And it helps you work more. Go rent the apartment or something like that for a week, a month, or whatever, and go out to dinner at a nice place. I happen to like steak, so I mean, you can get steak at Outback or you can get steak at Fleming's. Two completely different experiences. You go to one and there's peanut shells on the floor. And,
I'd rather take that environment, to be honest.
Okay.
You know what I found? Sometimes the fancier something is, it's not really worth it. You don't, and I've lived both lives. I've lived the extravagant life, and then I've eaten on paper plates, bologna sandwiches, and I like both. And as I get older, I enjoy the simple things. And then sometimes when I do something so extravagant, I almost feel like, damn, I don't even need this. I didn't even need all of this. I could have just pan fried that steak. I didn't have to go to, in some fancy place. But in order to kind of have that level of vision, you have to go through it. So to your suggestion, I always say, in order to know what you want, you have to experience what you don't want.
Yeah.
You can't really know. I mean, and you can't take my word for it, because a lot of people they have that natural curiosity. So you could tell them, stay away from that woman, but they're going to go to that woman if they want to go to that woman. And so, and as I get older, I lived a flashy, materialistic, superficial life growing when I was younger. I went through a phase like that. But now, man, I love the simple life. I don't need any fancy restaurants. I could eat at home. As you grow, your preferences change. So I want people to know this one thing, that who you are today, you won't be in 5 years. And I would say this: if you are that person in 5 years, you're probably stuck in a persona that maybe you need to reinvent, possibly. They say what's not broke, don't fix it. But I talk about personas in the book and that sort of thing. And we all have them. Every single person has several hats that they wear, and it's because you need to thrive in the world. But at some point, you have to be willing to disassociate with a persona if you know it's time and you're evolving and you're becoming a different person.
Right.
It's like this. When you're young, you're playing with blocks. Could you imagine if you're like, no way, I'm not giving up the blocks when you're 12 and you're 15? And so, you're going to move on to something else, G.I. Joe's, video games, and then maybe sports now. And so as an adult, don't forget that when you were young, you went through that process, and when you're older, you'll still go through that process.
Right. It's funny how everybody goes through the $500 car stage. Where like the muffler, you take like a hanger and you're wiring the muffler up from dragging on the ground, and you have a can of engine starting fluid in the trunk, and just just the crazy stuff. But I think everybody has to go through the $500 car stage in order to kind of move up a little bit. You remember, yeah, I remember my first car, my second car, and I had to jumpstart the thing every other day, and so. But I think some of those humble beginnings are learning experiences for us, and I think that it's like the first time that you do everything. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it be the first time you go to the gym, first time you grow a beard, first time someone fires up a cigar, the first time you cook a steak, the first time you did everything is always a learning experience, and we're supposed to have a. I've heard someone say there's a difference between 10 years of experience and 1 year of experience 10 times.
Yeah, that's a good one. I could see that point. There's a line in a Sade song. It's never as good as the first time. And that's true. I talk about that even in the book, how people get attached to sensations and experiences. A lot of you got to remember that it'll never be as unique as that one time. It can never be replicated as hard as you try to. I think that's even why people stay in relationships. They're stuck on 2009 when they went on that Ferris wheel and kissed for the first time. And they're like stuck there. But you'll never be able to get that moment back. You two people were completely different individuals at that time. Maybe you've grown apart. Maybe you're not even into each other anymore. But they get stuck on the memories, and that's a big part. A big part of my my mission is to help you, govern your psychology. Enjoy the moments, but don't get attached to it, because it'll never be the same again. It'll never be just like that. Now, it could be better. It could be better. I don't want to always say it'll never be that good. It could even be better, but it'll never be just like that. So it could also go, it can get worse. And so you have to remain neutral at all times. So you never get too attached, never get too proud, never too much pride, even never too much unhealthy ego. So if you stay neutral about every situation, if it goes bad, it won't kill you. If it goes great, it ain't going to kill you either.
Yeah,
you're prepared for either thing to happen.
Yeah, I like to say, don't get sentimental about the past. A lot of people trying to recreate the past.
Yeah.
There was a popular song in the 70s by Barbra Streisand called "The Way We Were," and it was just all about the past relationship they had. And it was even a movie too called "The Way We Were." It was Barbra Streisand and Robert Redford. It was actually a very good movie, but everyone trying to. Even who was it?
Maybe Robert Redford was a G. He was a G, man.
I totally recommend everyone just to watch every one of his movies. Just great stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it was maybe Gladys Knight from Gladys Knight and the Pips, where she started talking in one of her songs. Literally, she starts a song by saying, "Everybody's talking about the good old days, the good old days." And you know what the good old days are now? And we spend so much time trying to relive or recreate the good old days when the good old days are now. It's how many guys try to recreate a failed marriage? How many guys it's like create something new.
Women try to do this too. Women do try to do this. Women are really great at recreating themselves. This is why when a woman's done, there's nothing you can do about it. So shout out to R. Kelly. He has a lyric, "When a woman's fed up, there's nothing you can do about it," and there really isn't. In my book, most men are never really done. You can go flash your breasts at an ex, and he'll invite you in his house. But if you were to do that to a woman when she's done, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah,
not all women, but the bulk of women, when she's done, it's a process, and she's changed her identity within and outside, to a point where she doesn't even remember who she was in that dynamic. And that's why they're so easily departed from you after a breakup. Whereas a man tries to remain the same. See, this is the problem with men.
Yeah.
They try so hard to remain stoic and the same and unchanging, but that's not part of life. You are always changing, and if you live by that philosophy, I'm not changing, this is who I am. Well, this is why you keep experiencing a lot of the same things you go through. Whereas a woman, you can learn that from a woman to a degree. You don't want to do it like she does it, but you can learn how she can change her identity after a breakup. You see different hair, different clothes, loses weight, goes on vacations. It's because she's creating a new identity, a new persona that is no longer familiar with the previous persona. And so
Correct.
Women are really good at that. And if men should learn that from women to a degree. I'm not saying to be like women. I'm saying, though, that you have to accept the fact that you're always going to be changing. You're going to change. What you like 2 years ago, you don't have to keep liking that today. A lot of people force themselves to like things. Like, no, T-bone steak, that's it. It's like, okay, but if you don't want that anymore, or that's not your preference, maybe you like a tomahawk, or, that's an expensive steak, but, whatever. It's okay to merge. It's okay to add something on. And it's okay to drop something off.
It is. It's okay to get rid of the Chevy and buy a Dodge or a BMW, or
Correct.
Someone will say, "Well, I thought you were a Chevy man." Well, I was.
That's right.
I was.
That's right.
But
That's
I changed. I know. For the longest time, I was the only women in my book were 5'3", big boobs and blonde hair. That was it. And I had to kind of break out of that because that's what I was used to. And I had to just kind of literally just throw that vision out of my head and try something different, someone different, so to speak. And a lot of guys will try to recreate their past. And you're right, women will change themselves. Guys just get jammed up when someone throws a monkey wrench in their life. I mean, there's not a lot of women who consider suicide after a divorce. I know a lot of men who have considered that, who were in deep despair.
Yes. And I've coached many men like that. Or if they're not going to self-delete, they're walking dead anyway, So if they're not going to do that, which we don't encourage, we understand why you might want to. We understand why you contemplate that. But I always say a good night's sleep, man, a quality night's sleep brings new perspective in the morning. Even me, I've gone to bed angry. I've gone to bed very angry. And that's why I bought a punching bag and started boxing again. I used to box a lot in my 20s, and I recently got back into it, and it's been helping my stress tremendously. And so, but there was something I wanted to tell you. Social conditioning can also bring about what kind of woman you're attracted to. Because I grew up in the inner city. Listened to a lot of rap music, R&B, hip hop. Mm-hmm. But I also did listen to rock and heavy metal too. I wasn't just a one-trick pony, and even love music, love ballads. Mm-hmm. But where I grew up, most women were kind of thick, curvaceous, and so for a good portion of, I would say, the first 25 years of my life, I liked thick women. As I got into the corporate world and expanded outside of that neighborhood, my taste buds begin to change, and now I like slender women. I like fit, slender women. I don't like big butts anymore. I used to, but I just simply don't like big butts.
And you cannot lie.
Right. So, but nothing against it. I mean, I could see a woman that's curvaceous that has this big butt, whatever. Yeah. And I could appreciate the figure, but my preference is a fit woman who has curves, not a rail, but fit and thin. Yeah, but it changes because once you get out of an environment and out of a culture, I always say culture, SULT, and then, URE. Once you
Mm-hmm.
get out of a culture or you step away from it and learn who you are away from a dynamic, you're going to learn new things and you're going to be surprised at what you prefer now over what you were kind of accustomed to preferring.
Mm. Here's something I found yesterday. I like using Google's. I know some people are against Google, but it's the largest search engine in the world. And
Yeah,
the
I love it.
when you start to ask a question, there's a little drop down thing that happens. So I Googled, how do I get my wife? And I didn't even finish the question, like how do I get my wife to do whatever. But what dropped down was, how do I get my wife to love me again? How do I get my wife back? How do I get my wife pregnant faster? How do I get my wife to lose weight? How do I get my wife to love me? How do I get my wife to want me? Those are what men are searching.
Yep.
I put in there, how do I get my husband? And this is what women
How
are
do I
searching.
get my husband's pension?
Yeah. How do I get my husband to love me again? How do I get my husband to respect me? How do I get my husband out of my house? How do I get my husband to notice me? How do I get my husband to stop drinking? Very interesting. So Google will, they drop down that menu for those that are looking for topics. Just Google anything and you're instantly going to get 10 to 15 things that are related to that topic or that people are already searching for. When I look for what wives and husbands are searching for, so much of it converges into, how do I get my wife to love me again? How do I get my husband, the two top, how do I get my wife to love me again? How do I get my husband to love me again? Holy cow. What is going on here, Coach EO? Why are people asking their phones or laptops this question? How do I get my spouse to love me again?
Boy, it's a loaded question, but here's what I'll tell you. We tend to put the responsibility of love on another, and that's a recipe for disaster always. I always say that a man should love himself, but not. Let me say this. Sometimes when you say love yourself, I don't think I love myself. Okay, let me just say, I don't think that I love myself. What I know that I'm doing is instinctual, which is I'm doing what it takes to continue my survival. Mm-hmm. But as intellect comes in, you tend to want to respect yourself. So I would tell the audience, stop trying to love yourself, because I don't know that it's possible to love yourself. I think it sounds good. What you can do is just respect yourself, respect your temple, respect your mind, respect your emotions, respect nature, respect animals, respect other human beings, respect what doesn't belong to you, respect the fact that someone has an opposing viewpoint. Respect it. You don't have to agree, but you can respect it. I even have a book or a chapter, Respect versus Love, in that book, Respect versus Love. So try to stop putting the responsibility of what is yours onto other people, and you're going to see that more people want to stay with you. It's just natural. It's like, and here's why it's natural. This is why women want what they can't have. Pardon me. Let me retract. This is why human beings want what they can't have. We have a tendency to want to just disregard what's easy for us to get. But when something doesn't need us, okay, when a woman doesn't need you, she may enjoy you, but she doesn't need you. You tend to want her more. Okay, that's why even women have told me that. I can't seem to figure you out. I mean, like when I talk to you, you're 100% tapped in, but when I'm away from you, it's like you're gone. Yeah. And I'm like, because I love you when I have you, but when I don't have you, I no longer love you. I've told women that before, and don't. It doesn't mean that I don't still think of you, but it's not in my best interest or your best interest to love you all day. Okay? When I'm with you, I'll put this phone away. Not always, but I've done it. You have to become conscious of that. Okay, put your phone away. Don't take any calls right now. You got a 2-hour slot with a woman. Even if I met it with George Bruno in Philadelphia, or Pennsylvania, I'm not going to have my phone on. I'm not going to be checking Instagram or YouTube. I'm going to go have a steak with this man and enjoy our conversation. And so if you could just be tapped into the moment with people, but not keep dwelling on it and keep wanting to recycle that, it kind of goes back to wanting to repeat history. You have to learn how to love the moment and respect who you're with. You'll never do it 100% of the time, but you can do better. Mm-hmm. And then just let them go. And so the problem is that you want to love them and then keep loving them. And it's really not your responsibility to continue loving people. You don't even have that much time in your life to love that many people. You can barely love yourself half of the time. So start with respect. I would say stop this whole self-love campaign and go with self-respect. Respect the self, respect the mind, the emotions, and the spirit. Then respect another person after that, then another person after that, even if they disagree with you or they have an opposing lifestyle. Try to just respect it, and I think you'll go a much longer way with that. And so long explanation, there's a lot there, but people are putting that responsibility on others. But I think part of that is social conditioning. I think part of that is you've been told to love people. It's not your responsibility to continue loving someone. If you naturally, in the moment, are filled with love and respect, anyone around you is going to experience that. But if you have to continue to try to love, I think there's a problem there.
Yeah, if you love in order to get back, I think there's a great interview with Bryan Cranston. I forget where I saw it. It might be on YouTube. The guy who played Walter White in Breaking Bad. And there was an actor that asked him, what is the key to auditioning? Like, in other words, like, how did you get your role as Walter White? Breaking Bad is one of the most popular TV series of all time.
Yeah.
He said, create a character. When they say 3, 2, 1, action in the audition, you create a character, do the best you can, and then walk away. If you get a call back and they want you to play that character in a film or on TV, then great. He says, but after you create the character, after you do your job, the best job that you can, and you walk away, you no longer have control over anything. Mm-hmm. You did your thing. If they want to hire you or cast you in that TV program or movie, then that's what they're going to do. But you can't go home and just wring your hands over it. Otherwise, it's like trying to love people. Yeah. Loving people with the expectation that you're going to get loved back will only make you bitter, because you're never going to be loved back or respected back the way that you want. So you have to have I know there's a buzz phrase now that a lot of people are using called outcome independence, but you can't be connected to the outcome. You can only be connected to you. Like what you say, respect yourself, and the joy that you get from respecting yourself. I get joy from not drinking 5 old fashions every night, from not drinking them, as opposed to nights where I, in the past, where I would just be slamming the bourbon and waking up feeling like crap the next day. And it just had to do with, I don't like feeling like crap. I don't like it. That's no longer fun, and for me to think, gee, at one time it was actually fun. Like, what was I thinking? When I look at past relationships, and I will say, man, there was a time when I thought that was fun, or I thought she was cool or sexy or whatever. And I'm like, I don't want to relive the past. I want to leave it where it is, learn from it, and move forward.
Most of life is a routine, and it's all a routine. So even drinking, it's a routine. Your body gets used to it. Now it wants it. And then you think in order to have fun, you got to involve alcohol. I was a big binge drinker I started drinking in my teens. I used to smuggle drinks 16 years old, little Mickeys. But anyway, I drank a lot through my 20s. Into my middle 30s, I haven't had a drink in over 2 years. I used to smoke cigarettes. packs of cigarettes a night while I was out. I used to have promiscuous sex all the time. I did a lot of things that I no longer do.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have self-respect. I look like a man. See, here's the thing. We look like people who respect ourselves. We put on nice suits and get our hair done and our beards are all, look at the beard on George. And we do a lot that will illustrate self-respect. But if you take a look at the lifestyle and the decision-making, we're one false move away from death.
Yeah.
We're one unintelligent decision away from self-destruction. And I mean that. And I put that in the book. It's not that you're trying to hurt yourself, but you can do something because you lack discipline, you lack self-respect, you don't know what you want, you don't know who you are, you don't know how to be alone. George and I always talk about solitude. I know George loves his alone time, as I do. And when a man or a woman can truly enjoy silence, I think you're becoming a very healthy human being. I really do. And I think you're less needy. You're less desperate. You can be a little more selective. You can say no to what you couldn't say no to 5 years ago. So I want to tell the audience, don't feel bad necessarily if you look back and say, like, why did I do that? Well, you kind of had to do that because you didn't have any structure in place. Maybe you didn't have a mentor. Maybe you didn't know how to do better. And so if you do know how to do better, and then teach another how they can do better.
I love that. I one of my most popular social media posts just happened yesterday, and I said, I'll tell you exactly what it said. I'm looking at it now, and I basically said, "What are you teaching others here?" So here's the exact quote: "Someone you never met is watching you right now. What are you teaching them?" Last time I checked, that had 814,000 likes, over 400 replies, over 200 reposts. And I'm thinking, holy cow, I've never had a response like that. Someone you never met is watching you right now. What are you teaching them? And I think it's important that we teach. One friend of mine, Ken MacArthur, who's doing a conference in September down in Orlando. His whole thing is the impact factor. He says, we make an impact whether we want to or not, whether we intend to or not, we make an impact. You get up and let's say you take a walk around your neighborhood, kind of a faster walk every day at 6 o'clock. You're doing it for yourself. But let's say someone happens to see you every day out there doing it. They're like, man, that dude's out there walking every day. Look at him. And they start thinking, maybe I should do that. Like, I wasn't intending to have an impact on anyone else, but just like, for instance, I mean, at my age, I'm fit, I'm healthy. People look at me. I'm not trying to have an impact on anybody. I'm just trying to live longer. That's what I'm trying to do. But people say to me, like other guys my age will say, man, you're really fit, or you know, for your age, whatever. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm interested in longevity and quality of life and such. I'm not doing it in order to inspire or impress anybody. I'm doing it so I have a good life. And Ken MacArthur, I'm going to be interviewing him soon on the channel. His famous quote is, "You are having an impact on people whether you realize it or not."
You know what I'll say to that? I was asked this question recently. The best teachings that I've found, the best moments where I'm teaching is when I'm not trying to teach. Kind of what you said, where I'm not trying to. See, the intention to teach can sometimes ruin the lesson. As you put it, sometimes just be the example just be the example and don't try to teach. My best broadcasts are when they're a little unstructured sometimes, when
Yeah.
there's no bullet point. It just comes from real life experience. And so even yesterday, I coached a guy. I predicted something would happen about 4 months ago. It happened exactly the same because I had enough experience to know that possibility was great. Did I know with certainty what happened? No, but I knew that I lived that enough, and I understood the psychology of a human being enough to know that the likelihood of them doing this one thing was great, and they did it exactly the way I told my client. And in that moment, I was cutting my hair. I'm actually trying to grow my hair out. I've had it low. I'm trying to grow it back to we'll see what happens. But I was cutting my hair yesterday and blending it and all that. And I was texting him, my client, because he has a texting. He's an annual, and I was texting him while I'm doing it. But I wasn't really that zoned in. I mean, I was doing two things at once. But what I was saying to him, what I was conveying and teaching him during that moment, he was like, dude, this is the best advice I've ever received in my life. Like, what you just told me gave me so much calmness. And I said, well, that's really my whole mission, is to help you become a calmer human being with less attachments and more clarity. George says this all the time too.
But that was spontaneous.
It was spontaneous.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting him. I was cutting my hair, trying to get done. It takes a long time to cut your own hair. And so, and trim the beard. It was like real big. And then he started texting me, Coach, what you said happened. How should I proceed? And I'm texting him with the guard, thing going and do this. But it was unplanned. It was unstructured, but it came out of the pureness in me too. Like I really wanted to help him. It wasn't even about money that much. Like I wasn't even thinking about the money. It was just, I just genuinely wanted to help this dude. And what I told him, he said, Coach, that gave my spirit peace.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if I
That's
gave you
great.
spirit peace, then try to stay there. Where I positioned you, I didn't bring you there. I mean, I just opened a door and you looked in. That's kind of what wisdom is. It's like you can't force wisdom on somebody. They got to go in. You could open the door and say, hey, take a look in there. If they look and they're like, wow, I like it in here. Now the potential for you to have wisdom is there, but you can't force people into wisdom. They might want to go back through the dumb door, but that's what I did. I just showed him something in a moment where he felt high stress. He felt a little chaotic, and I settled him, and he said, "Boy, I feel peace. I'm good." And I went on with my day, and so did he.
At that moment, and I've had these moments, you end up becoming like a mouthpiece for God, because you might not think it, but your words are as if the heavens opened up and God spoke to that person. I know there are things that I've said spontaneously that have become almost iconic. Several years ago, a guy said to me, I'm trying to get my wife back. I'm working out. I'm trying to do better. Blah, blah. And I said, stop. You need to stop trying to get her back and get you back. Mm-hmm. And boom, that just became a thing. Men have been writing me about that. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm doing what you said. I'm getting me back. And I'm like, I had no idea that was going to end up being an iconic phrase.
Yeah.
It's almost as if like I did not sit down and think hard about what's going to sound cool. Like when I talk about sanity, clarity, and reason, I did not think that was going to become an iconic phrase. That was just one of those things where I literally, off the top of my head, said, I thank you for coming here to my channel. I like to consider this the home of sanity, clarity, and reason. Literally, just off the top of my head.
Sure.
Boom, that became an iconic phrase that people have used now for years. What are some of the phrases that you've come up with that just came off the top of your head that are now like iconic?
Well,
like I'm sure, like the whole it begins and ends with the man. I'm sure I'm sure that came out of.
That just
It's
came
not
out
like
in a video. Yeah, that just
yes,
came out.
yes.
There was no preparation. There was no marketing strategy behind that. Like, okay, we're gonna say this at the 4-minute mark in this video, and then now we're gonna, encourage people to follow that mantra. It
It
actually
wasn't.
all of,
Wait,
yeah.
you didn't do a focus group with
No focus group,
5,000 people,
no
and
group think, no surveys, no
yeah.
nothing. It just came out of me. A funny one was YouTube chill. I don't know if you've ever heard me say YouTube chill, because I can get a little mouthy, and one day I just said YouTube chill. And it was almost like telling YouTube, like, chill, don't flag my channel kind of thing, like don't take me down. And I
Yeah.
stuck with that. People love that when I say YouTube chill. If I'm like going in on a subject, and I'll go YouTube chill because it might be a little risque or a little, and people love that. I mean, there's a lot more. There's a quote that I like to quote things. There's things that I come up with. I try to produce a quote behind it and kind of take recognition for it, as a lot of people have in the past. And so there's one that I put on my Instagram, and I think I even put it in the second book, which is no one has ever broken your heart but you. And I truly do believe that no one has ever broken my heart but me. Sometimes that's just naivety. It's ignorance. It's you don't know better. It is social programming. But once you grow in age, you should grow in wisdom. The more experiences you have, the more you could take a look at it and start to see, okay, what I was taught back there isn't working. It isn't working what I learned back there. It's not working. That's not the answer. And so I realized that no person has ever broken my heart but me. It was my story about what happened that broke my heart. It was the story that I developed and that I cultivated and stuck to and grew even, that broke my heart. What happens in life doesn't really break your heart. It's just what happens in life, and you have to adjust to it. But it's the story. I had to tell another client this. What he might be leaving a job, he might be resigning, and it's a big position. But things have transitioned and things are not the same anymore. It's not 2009 anymore. He's in a completely different position now. Different personalities are involved. Things have changed. And I said, if you leave the job, this is not your first rodeo, you're in your 50s, you'll be fine. You will be fine. But you won't be fine if you add spice to what is happening. I worded it just like that. I said, it's the spice that we add to what's happening that breaks our heart. But if we just look at what's happening and don't add any spice, sure, it could be challenging. And it's mainly challenging because your sensory deprivation is about to take place. So what you're used to seeing, feeling, tasting, smelling, you're about to go through withdrawal of that, which is really a big portion of why we tend to have such a hard time during breakups, is because we're so used to that brunette laying on the bed. We're so used to seeing her loofah in the shower. You know what I mean? We're used to seeing that. And so if you don't see it, but you got to realize that you're just it's foreign for you to not experience this. So if you could just kind of realize that, like, do I really miss her or him? Or am I just stuck on the routine?
Yeah.
And if you could kind of go through that in your mind, like a lot of the people that I've coached, I said, I want you to answer this honestly. Do you really miss her? Do you really want her back? Or are you just scared to move forward without her? Is it you that you're afraid of experiencing in this new phase? Is that who you're afraid of? That you that won't have those personalities? And he's like, yes. So if you really start to kind of investigate these wantings that you want, these things that you want back, or especially when breakups, wanting the ex back, you don't really want her back in most cases, or him back. You want that comfort back. You want that routine back. You want the smell of coffee in the air in the morning. Maybe the first thing she did in the morning was wake up and make a pot of coffee, and you've gotten used to that.
Yeah.
So you got to look at that, men and women. You have to look at, do you really want the people, or do you want that routine back? And are you afraid of who you are going to be now without those things? That's generally the answer.
That's profound. That's profound. You got my attention the minute you said you don't miss her, you miss her loofah in the shower. I mean,
It's those little things. It's the hair in the shower. It's those things.
Yeah,
Yep.
her toothbrush. That's why I like to say, if you're going to go through a breakup, also have the funeral. Just get rid of everything. Hanging on to stuff, hang on. Maybe you can hang on to something little or whatever, but just to, I deal with a lot with widows and widowers, and one of the questions that they all come up with is, when do I get rid of his or her clothes in the closet? When do I put stuff in the trash bag and take it over to the Salvation Army or Goodwill or something? Like, when do I move on? When do I take all the pictures down? Whatever. When do I get rid of when do I sell his motorcycle? When, like, that kind of stuff with widows and widowers. And that's a tough thing to go. But I think what a lot of people fear is the space. They have to look at themselves. That's why I like to say, when a guy, if a girl flakes on you, a lot of guys in our space like talking about spinning plates, okay, having multiple girlfriends and this kind of stuff. And I say, yeah, it's okay to spin plates as long as you are one of those plates. In other words, if the chick flakes on you for tomorrow night, okay, so it's Friday right
George,
now. You got
I'm
a
listening
date.
to you. George, I'm listening to you. I got an electrician coming here. I just want to call him back. I'm listening to you. I'm just going to mute for a second.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
That's fine. So what I was saying was, it's Friday now. You have a date on Saturday night, and she flakes on you tomorrow night. What I like to say is, okay, don't start going back on the dating site. Don't start looking at your little black book, which is from my era, having a little black book of women that you can call. I say, have a date with yourself. So she flakes on you for Saturday night. Guess what? You get to spend Saturday night with yourself. Make a nice steak, Netflix a movie, read a book, have a cigar, make yourself a cocktail, whatever. You end up getting a good night's sleep. You wake up the next morning feeling good, and you had a good time by yourself. Don't fill the time with chicks if you aren't comfortable with yourself. So make sure that you are a plate. Make sure that you are an option in the whole scheme of things. If you're a single person, your life is not, especially when you're watching YouTube, there's so many people that are, spinning plates and multiple girlfriends and have women in rotation and this kind of thing. Okay, whatever. Just make sure you are in that rotation.
I like that. I got about 20 minutes, if that's okay, George, left. I got an electrician coming here to do some stuff, but and thank you for the time. What was I going to tell you here? Okay, I like that. Some of the breakup advice that I give is most people want an ex back because they didn't give their best in the relationship. If you notice in anything that you do, if you give your best to a speech, give your best to anything you do, you give your best. Whatever happens at the end, you generally are okay with that result. But if you call off work, you were hungover, whatever the case, I didn't give my best. I think the electrician's here. He'll have to wait a little bit. If you give your best to anything that you do, the likelihood of you having regret, remorse, or wanting to bring that particular thing back into your reality is going to be fewer than if you just half-assed, didn't give your best, was unfair, was
Yeah.
unfair to the people you were dealing with, unfair transactions, unfair business practices, unfair relationship, communication was bad, you weren't in a good place, you didn't nurture the relationship, you were a little bit too distracted by outside factors, Instagram, things like that. You generally want a redo when you didn't do your best. But if you do your best, if you do your best at something, and I always say the best game, I talk about champion game.
Yeah.
The best game in the world is to be sincere. In every situation, just be sincere. And sincere it has many branches, the sincere tree. So it can be, being honest, not lying, being truthful, being courteous with the truth. Don't always, but then sometimes being sincere is bashing them with the truth. Every moment requires a certain level of sincerity. And so I would tell the people watching, the best game is to be sincere. Sincere with you, and then sincere with whomever you're dealing with. You're going to notice, even if you don't get it, you can live with that. What you can't live with is being insincere and flashing back. Oh, I should have said this. Oh, I should have said that. I should have done better. I should have took her out to dinner more, or whatever. I should have, it's because you were being insincere. And so aim to be sincere. I think your results will be much better. The last thing I want to say about relationships is, get in the habit of ending a relationship on good terms. I mean, it's like every relationship, or the bulk of relationships, are ended in some what seems to be a surprising fashion, but it wasn't a surprise. I mean, breakups, the indications of a breakup are always there. It's always showing itself to you.
Always.
And you saw it, but you just either ignored it because you didn't know how to adjust and handle that, or you took it for granted.
Yes.
Or you took it for granted. But anything that you take for granted and you mismanage will eventually be too hard to I guess reverse. And even some buildings, they become so condemned that you just got to knock the motherfucker down and you got to rebuild.
Knock them down.
You can't redo that. It's done.
Yeah.
It's over. You have to take it down. So don't let your relationships get to the point of that you can't manage it again. It's out of your control. That's a big part of why relationships end too. Plus, identifying that this relationship is over is a beautiful thing. Why waste your time? Why waste her precious time? Especially since the men in this loony bin say that women hit the wall at 30. If the poor lady hits the wall at 30, which I don't agree with, I think a woman at any age can get a man.
Right.
If you pay attention, there's a 65-year-old woman right now that can get a man. She could get a man. If she sets her mind to it, she can get a man. Trust me.
That's right.
So no woman actually hits the wall. Maybe for marriage and babies, different conversation. But if the woman hits the wall at 30 and you have her at 29 and you never want to marry her, get rid of her. Not get rid of her. Let her go. Release her so she can use those good years and actually get something that can bring her happiness and fulfillment.
Right.
Why take up more of her time? So I try to tell men, end the relationship. You'll hear men in this space, 70% of marriages are divorces are introduced by women. And that's because you men don't end things. You don't end the relationship. You sit there and just let everything happen. You see all the warning signs. And then eventually the woman goes, well, if this soft motherfucker won't end it, I'll end it. And so that's what happens. Not in every case, but in a lot of cases. So men, if you're leading, you got to lead the dating. You have to lead the process of evaluation for competency for a relationship. You have to introduce the relationship at the appointed time, not too early, not too late, balance. And then you also have to govern the relationship. And if you see we can no longer thrive together, we're changing, lifestyles are conflicting, instead of just letting that thing just be, just end it. End it peacefully. Then you don't have to think about, when do I get rid of the frame? You just hand it. You can look at the frame and it don't bother you. because
Yeah.
you ended it with class. You
Yeah.
ended it for the right reasons, and the reason why you can't look at the picture frame or you can't throw out this or you can't is because you didn't end it well. If you end it with class and respect and for the right reasons, you can look at a picture frame and not feel like you have to get rid of it. Just one day you'll just place it somewhere else.
That's wisdom. That's wisdom. Well, thank you for your time. Where can people find you? I know we're going to do this again, and I'm sure every time you are on an interview, people say to you, "My God, we can go on forever about this." So, but
Yeah.
we'll end it with this. Tell us where people can find you, and we'll plan this again sometime.
Yeah, and I'd like to have you on my show. Let people who are unfamiliar with you get familiar with you. So I'd like to coordinate that when we can. I want to prepare the audience that finds this that there's a section of men that I still have to nurture. So I do make videos for the 25-year-old guy. I make videos for the 22-year-old guy because he still needs guidance. Especially from a man who's been there and who's had a tremendous amount of life experience. I'm 42 years old, and I coach men that are 60. And they're like, how the hell do you know about this? And I said, I think I'm an ancient brother. I think I've been here before, probably in some other form. But I clearly, some of the stuff I know through experience, but I also just know through discernment that I get from a supernatural place. I can't know some of the things I know. Why I'm saying that is that you might come to my channel, you might hear me here and go, wow, this guy's insightful. But then you come to my channel, you see a Killing the Simp episode, where I'm, kind of belittling a persona. I put that in the book. I don't belittle the human being. I antagonize the mindset. If I can help that mindset lose power, then that real you in there that has so much creativity, so many gifts, has the potential to come forth. But if you're stuck in a persona, like I'm the president or I'm this, I'm that, you're stuck there. That identity is very heavy and leading you. But if I could help you see that was just something you picked up, either for protection, you picked it up because you were getting bullied in high school, so you picked that up as a way to feel better. And most people go to the gym to impress women, and there's a lot of things that you do that you don't realize why you even created that as some form of self-defense. And sometimes that's good. But then sometimes it runs its course and it's no longer good, and it's gonna block your blessings in the future if you remain that person. And so as you come to my channel, I want you to know that I purposefully antagonize personas, but never the person.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I want people to know that there's a strategy to how I coach, and I will distinguish who's been leading you, who you created, and who's been leading you, that persona that's been leading you. And that persona has to be either reinvented or actually dismissed altogether. And that's a big staple in my coaching, is that I help people see that who you've been, you can no longer be if you want new results. So as you come to my channel, bear with me that I have to still make videos for men that are in their early 20s, and I can't present it as I'm talking to the great George Bruno. We're having a different conversation that a 20-year-old would have no interest in. So I have to kind of sometimes tailor some of my messages to the age bracket that is currently finding me. But anyway, long explanation, but I wanted to say it. Coach EO, that's me. Got a second book coming out. I have a huge announcement in about 30 days that will benefit every single man that finds me. I can't wait to introduce it. I don't want to say anything yet, but it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to bring you great results, and you're going to enjoy it. So be on the lookout for that. My website, if you're interested in hiring me to help you maybe get through a situation. ChampionGameCoaching.com is where you can book some time with me. And thank you, George, for showing my book. It's available on Amazon. Just type in "Cut the Bullshit." You'll see my big head pop up, and that's where you can grab a copy.
That's great. It's funny. Last thing is, someone said that in the coaching world, they don't hire a coach to be nice to them. They hire a coach to be an asshole with them. It made me laugh. And nobody ever grows by being coddled and nurtured. They grow by being challenged. And that's what coaching does. Because some people say, what is it with this coaching business? I don't understand why there's all these coaches now. And I'll give you the last word before we say goodbye. Why? Why coaching?
I didn't plan to be a coach. I'll be honest with you. This was unplanned too. This business was unplanned. It was never something I wrote down in 2015. You're going to be a coach. It was one thing where I was just inspiring so many people when it comes to style. I was in the sales game a long time. And I was always encouraging people how to be a better salesperson, how to have a neater sale, not so sloppy, not something that you have to nurture so much after the sale. Because if you do it right and it's a clean sale, the likelihood of you having to take a bunch of calls is fewer. You might have to take one or two calls, but sometimes if it's a clean sale, you understood the client, you didn't try to oversell them, you added tremendous benefit to their lives. You're going to get repeat business, referrals, and that sort of thing. So I was really good at sales. I mean, like a master of it for many years, well over a decade. And people would tell me, like, man, you got style, you got charisma, you're good, you're great with women, you're great with people, you're a hotshot salesman. Like, you need to coach. And I'm like, coach? What do you mean coach? Like, coach people? Like, coach them where? And one of these days I found, I hate to belittle the space because there's some good things that happen here. I found this space and something hit me. Man, you got so much game, brother. Do your own shit. And so I started a channel with a cell phone with bad audio back, and I just kept going. And I eventually made enough, and I was already making well over six figures with my previous job, and I was highly respected. I had 5 weeks vacation. I had post-career benefits. Like, there was no reason for me to leave. Like, logically. Like, you would be like, dude, why the hell are you leaving? You don't even commute anywhere. It's like, you get to work fast, you get home fast. Like, why leave? And it was because the passion left me to be there. I was going to work every day, putting my pants on. And I was like, although I'm great at this, I don't want to do this no more. And so I took a leap and I got into coaching. Why coaching? The best coaches have lived what they teach you and are living what they teach you. So this is what I'll tell people who desire to be coaches. Don't be a coach and you don't represent your teachings. That's why I quit alcohol and smoking and promiscuity. I went through all that, but I said, what kind of coach would you be if you weren't the example of what you teach? So now I'm clean as a whistle. Don't drink, don't smoke. I'm in a relationship now. I don't have promiscuous sex. I'm not a womanizer. I used to be. I had big rotations of women. But I'm more centered as a man. So if you're going to be a coach, make sure what you teach men and women that you've lived that. Yeah. The best game comes from lived experience. I always say there's a guy that reads books that doesn't live. And then there's a guy that reads books and lives. Mm-hmm. Okay? I have a best friend. He consumes content all the time, just consumes content all the time. But he doesn't apply anything that he takes pleasure in knowing things, but doesn't apply anything. Don't be that guy. Be the guy that seeks counsel, wise counsel, but that you apply and make it your own, what you learn. So my advice to coaching, why you need it, therapists generally have to play by the book. They generally ask you questions and get you just to say things. Where a coach is a different style. We do flash that light on you hard. You know, I put the mirror in front of my client's face to a point that even sometimes they retreat. I've had clients pay me and not even come back for their sessions. And that could be for multiple reasons. That could be they got enough and they're out living life and the little extra $2,000 that was on the books, it don't matter to them. Or I confronted them with their truth. I so heavily. You have to also do that. There's a measure to that I've learned as a coach. You have to make sure that the truth is funneled in a way that's digestible. Because if you confront a woman or a man with too much truth and they're not ready, they're just going to retreat and they'll never come back. So there is a way to teach the truth about people. It's slow and methodical, and it has to be to a point that they can absorb and really, really use. So if you're going to be a coach, don't just steal game from people who have done it. I mean, you could do that. I won't respect you. But if you are the gleaming example of what you teach, then I think you could be a fantastic coach.
That is great. That is great. Let's do this again. Thank you for your time, and we'll be in touch real soon. Take care. Thank you, Coach EO. Yeah.
Thank you.